This is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm back sitting in the air-conditioned library, the Creative Circus, and we may hear some thunder. While Eric was presenting to the students today, we heard, I felt it actually. I think the building shook a little bit.
There was some ominously timed thunder.
Yeah, and then the internet stopped working, and it was like the clients from another dimension managing the conversation.
Client strikes back.
Client strike back in the most unexpected ways. So Eric is back. He graduated from school, and the last time I probably saw him face-to-face would have been, 10 and a half years ago, which is just absolutely unbelievable.
Insane.
And he's grown up. I would venture to say, I was going to say this even before someone said this to me in the hall. He's better looking now than he was as a student. And one of the questions I want to ask him is about, I'm just going to start. We'll get into the history in a second. I just want to ask you first off, welcome back.
It's great to be back. It's nice to see you. It's nice to be back in the building. I had forgotten the circus has this scent.
Oh, yeah, it has a smell.
It has a smell, and the scent is really tied to memory. So you just walk in the doors and you're like, oh my God, this was 2 years of my life.
Right, 2 years, yeah.
2 years.
And does it seem now like it was really fast, 2 years?
Incredibly.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Because my circus experience was, I was working full-time at the restaurant, so I would go to school, go to the restaurant, and work. And, that was it. So when your days are packed like that, time's flying, man.
Yeah. And I'd forgotten how enthusiastic you are. My memory of you was of a thoughtful guy, smart, energetic, but I'd forgotten the consistency of your good energy. But my question was, your height. So you're 6'5", 6'6". I have to look up at you.
6'5".
Yeah, 6'5". Have you found your height to be an advantage or disadvantage? Has it affected anything about the way people interact with you in your career? Do you think there's anything to your height?
Funny question. I guess my first answer is I don't know. I've certainly worked with people shorter than me who have been infinitely more successful. Okay. So it's not holding them back.
So you don't know.
Maybe.
Right. I don't know either.
I have for the first time a client who is taller than me.
Interesting.
And that's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I
mean, he's probably 6'6", legit basketball player, and it's just strange to be looking up.
And you're 6'5", 170. There's not much on you. So, okay, and part of that is that you're fit, and part of that is that you swim 4 days a week. So tell me about what that means. Where does swimming fit into you as a professional creative director? What does swimming do for you?
I could not do my job without some sort of exercise. And everyone's wired differently, and plenty of people, they don't need that. But to me, I'm a person of routine, and I go to bed at 10, and I wake up at 6, and I swim from, let's just say, 7 to 8. And that puts me in a better mood for the rest of the day at work.
I really respect that. That's awesome.
But and so when I don't swim, I'm less happy. I'm not as good at my job. And when you get busy at work, my old boss Tom Adams would say this: that when you get busy, exercise is the first thing to go. That's the first thing you drop, and it really should be the last thing because it makes you so much better at your job. For me, I mean, other people that they don't need that, but for me, it puts me in the right mental space to deal with a oftentimes frustrating job.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because I've been recording these conversations for over 11 years. And I think when I started talking...
Congrats, by the way.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, actually.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you for thanking me. Thank you for congratulating me. And when I started off, I think I was like, I heard of yoga. It kind of sounds like something I might want to... And I go back and I think if I listen to these conversations, I mentioned, oh yeah, I should start that. And then I got really into it.
Into yoga?
For 2 or 3 years, I was going to yoga class 2 or 3 days a week for a good 2 years. And like you said, I got busy and stopped doing it. And I can feel the difference, mental, physical. And now it's I just imagined a big curve in my life where I was doing it and it was really good. And now, I attribute a lot of my frustrations in life to not going to the yoga class. I need to get my ass back to it. And when I was younger, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I said this at forum, but I often think of a lot of my problems, be them professional or personal, are at the bottom of that pool.
Yeah.
Swimming is one of those things where your head is underwater and you're going back and forth and there's nothing to look at. There's no podcasts to listen to. It's like the only unplugged time you have. And I think we all, especially creative people, need more of that. And so it's like therapy.
What it is. And yoga for me is every inhalation, exhalation is like processing out in like bad physical and mental things. Every exhalation, you're actually losing weight, mental weight, like psychological weight. But what I was going to say is when I was younger, exercise was part of my lifestyle. It was like, I never would have considered not. Back then I was a cyclist, and living in Manhattan, I would ride every other day at least 15, 12 miles, and never would have done without it. And I think I took for granted my youth and exercise. And I think the busier you get, the more you have to schedule it in. I'm thinking of all the people that are senior level creative director, your level or even higher, like how actively they have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And Lisa, my wife, is now setting an alarm for 5:30 every other day to go to the gym. So she's at the gym by 6:15, 6:30. And it makes a big difference. I can see it in her demeanor, really.
You really have...
such a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer, but you do have to make time for it, because and that's why I do it before the workday, because you have no control you have very little control in this business of when you leave.
Right.
Like if it's a big meeting, maybe you're leaving at 9, maybe you're leaving at 1 in the morning. Sometimes just out of the blue, you're stuck at work late. But it is very rare that something is exploding at 7 a.m. before you've got into work.
Yeah,
so
exactly right.
That's your time.
Good though for you. It's 10 o'clock over here.
Yeah.
You have clients on this side of the world?
Right now, all my clients are in Santa Monica, so that is perfect. That's cool for an LA person.
Plus, I remember I worked with this guy named Jeff Bradison, an art director at my second job, who was a big trainer. He worked out, and he said like it sets your metabolism when you work out first thing in the day. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, so back to who you are, so the listeners can get a snapshot. And make sure you like the Facebook page, folks, facebook.com/DGMS podcast. Eric, like I said, graduated from the circus in 2007, worked at Goodness Manufacturing for longer than its founder, Paul Keister, another circus alum.
He's the best.
He's awesome, dude. He was on the podcast, one of the very first episodes, I think with Cal McAllister. I think they were classmates.
They're buddies.
And was there for a good 8 years. Let's just say Goodness was sort of the chunk of the beginning of your career. And then for the last 2 years, you split your time between freelance for the first year at Deutsch LA and now creative director for the last year full-time. Talk to me a little bit about, is that fair? Is that accurate?
Yeah. So I was, I'd been at Goodness and its iterations for such a long time that I was like, okay, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go freelance. And I'm going to go try every agency in Los Angeles because that's what you got to do. Right. And I got a freelance gig with my current partner, Neil Desai, who's the best. And we got extended. Right. And then we got extended again. Right. And then I think I went on my honeymoon, and then they brought me back. And as a freelancer...
Your literal marriage honeymoon.
Yes, my literal marriage honeymoon.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a year and a half of wedded bliss.
It's awesome.
And as a freelancer, you don't turn down work, right? Mm-hmm. Because you never know when the next one's coming. And I really enjoyed my time at Deutsch. Nice people, smart people, good creative opportunities, etc. So they kept bringing me back, and then they start having my partner sold this big campaign for Tile, which was this
so good, by the way,
beautiful story. Thank you.
Good,
so good. A little panda who comes to life and is lost, and basically they were like, "We love this campaign. We love you guys. If you want to produce it, you better come full time." And we did it. That was a year ago, and it's been a good year. We like Deutsch a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're a likable guy, right? I could see how someone's going to want to renew you. Someone's going to, the interview doesn't really say, "Oh yeah, that was cool. We're good. Go find some other place to work." So I'm not surprised that you and your partner Neil, what's his last name again?
Neil Desai, Desai.
Hi, Neil.
And he and I told this to you in the forum, but he sent you stuff years and years ago, and you were nice enough to reply to a random kid from the bookshop in Los Angeles, and he has always
That's so cool.
remained thankful for that and has listened to the podcast.
That's so cool. So your story reminds me a little bit. I've got to follow back with Rick and Marcel. Do you know Rick Williams?
We were roommates.
You guys? Oh, you're the same class.
We were roommates.
I'm so stupid for not remembering that.
No, but I mean, all these people run together.
It's a lot of height.
Rick and I were the tall, skinny people. Right. He was just the charming Southern drummer, amazing guy, and I was the
waiter.
The waiter.
The server. But he and Marcel did the same thing. They said enough, we've been at BBDO for a long time, and they want to just experience other cultures. Have you heard anything about their forays since he left BBDO?
Not a ton, but it was funny. Like, he was the East Coast big agency version of me at Goodness. And I think it worked out very well for him.
Well, no, insanely well. So talk to me about the different cultures. So would you describe Goodness as a small shop?
When I got hired, I was the 5th hire.
That's a bit qualified as small.
So number 9, because there were 5 partners. So the crucible of my junior experience was me and my partner Ryan Lee pitching against 3 ECDs for every single idea.
That's wild.
Which is you get better fast because you have to. So I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. And those guys have made me who I am today. And I still work with Bob Cianfroni, who is an ECD at Deutsch to this day. So that's been a really neat thread throughout my career.
Okay, so was he your initial contact for the initial? That's pretty cool. So it's all about the people.
It's all about the people. And that was the whole point of me going freelance, was to extend that network. And then I just stayed at Deutsch. And I've met a ton of people at Deutsch, so it's worked out.
Yeah, you said something.
Regard.
You said something earlier that I think is really important. I think this is a really important message, actually, about it's just a universal truth that people are going to look across the fence. People are going to have wandering eyes all the time in their career. They're going to wonder what it's like to work with a different partner or a different agency. And I think that it's just like when you're dating someone special and you take for granted that it's easy to find that special person, that you don't really realize that the people that you respect and the people that you love and the people that you can do great work with that doesn't happen all the time. And like, those relationships are special for a reason, and they are to be, and there's no downside to following that ECD to his next job.
I couldn't agree with you more. Everyone is always of the grass is greener mindset. And I've got friends who are in good work situations, but they've been there for a while, or they've got a bunch of that type of work in their book and they're thinking about leaving. And I'm like, guys, gals.
To what?
What are you leaving behind? Like, sometimes the best thing is right where you are. And
so hard to hear that.
And it's hard to hear that.
Hard to understand that, like to internalize that.
And many people, and this is the opposite of me, but are like that every 2-year agency type of thing, and they're always moving. But sometimes the best place you are is right where you are.
Yeah. I think that's really important, because I think that I could have learned that lesson early on. I think that I didn't understand the opportunity that was right where I was at certain times. It took me a while.
My friend Ellie Chadwick, who is on the account side, would always say, like, why go get another job? Because then you have to spend the first year figuring out the politics anyway.
Right, that's right.
And just getting up to speed, when at least wherever you are and every place you're going to be is going to have imperfections, at least you already know them.
Yeah, unless the imperfections are deal breakers.
That's for sure.
I mean,
for sure.
There are going to be situations where the creative director is philosophically different than you are, and places that aren't treating you fair, and there are reasons to leave. I'm not saying that everyone should be lucky and fortunate to stay in their job and never leave their job, but you should be, and I've said this before on the podcast, you should always be going to something, not running away from something.
I love that quote, and I live that as much as I can.
I think that's really important. So culturally, was it a leap? I guess it's sort of, answering my own question, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it would have been a seamless, sort of organic, I hate that word, organic, a seamless move for you to go into a creative director role at Deutsch after having done your 10 years or whatever. But culturally, sort of, what's the difference between a small place and a big place? If I'm a junior starting my career, what's the upside to having your experience, possibly, or going into a big place as a junior, like at Deutsch as a junior?
I think a good junior can make either work. My experience was one of intense mentorship at a small place, because
a writer. Is he a writer?
I had 2 writer ECDs and 1 art director by trade, ECD.
Mm-hmm.
So getting an idea that the three of them all liked
That's great.
was insanely difficult.
Right.
But it made me stronger today.
Wait, okay.
So
Stop for a second.
Okay.
Insanely difficult. Were you banging your head against the wall? Were you like, what am I doing? Like, what was the mindset of having to start your career off with that built-in challenge?
That goes back to the swimming and a lot of internal yelling while your face is underwater in your head.
Because I'm saying this for the benefit of the listeners, because you talked a lot about the obstacle course that is advertising, and sort of, a lot of people come to school and they present these great case studies of this great campaigns they work on, but the struggle that we've all been through is so much part of that experience. And for you to talk about how, oh my God, so for listeners, again, and I apologize to the listeners that I do tend to do this on the podcast right after we have a speaker, but
it's your podcast.
I'm trying to bring, yeah, right? Eric put together this entire sort of timeline of one particular campaign that went from like the beginning of September to like April. And there were two big client presentations where pretty much everything was thrown out. And in between those, there were multiple, half a dozen internal ECD presentations and decks built and all this kind of stuff. And everyone that's been in this business for more than 6 days has been through this experience. And for me, the adjustment of that struggle was sort of a surprise for me. And you're talking about that other sort of internal sort of challenge of an obstacle course. Emotionally, were you frustrated, or were you like, you grew into it? Like, what was the experience like for you personally, just kind of adjusting to that reality?
I think that's a great question. And I think, quite honestly, those first 2 years are hard.
Mm-hmm.
Even the most talented people, and I would not put myself in that, like, you're not good at the job yet. How could you be? You haven't had it.
It's not about talent, ultimately, though, is it?
It's talent, and then it's grit.
Right.
And it's sticking with it. But, like, you're not great at the job, so it is frustrating when you hand in a stack of lines and you're watching your CD go through them, and you're just hoping that he puts pen to paper to circle something,
mm-hmm.
and then you just see the paper being flipped and another paper, and you're just rooting for that ballpoint pen to just touch that paper. Right. So that can be frustrating while you're still honing your craft. And dealing with that frustration is a muscle you have to strengthen in this industry. I mean, frustration's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think for me it was like misunderstanding the job. I thought the job was to just come in and be a badass. Like, come in and just present awesome work, and that the awesome work is going to be bought because it's great. So that's not really your job. Your job is to produce a quantity of work and then produce another quantity of work, and to flesh out meetings and to make the process work. Mm-hmm. And if one of those ideas is great, then it's kind of awesome. That's good.
Yep.
But like, brilliance is sort of not the commodity. I mean, brilliance is a commodity. Everyone sort of has intelligence. I mean, the intelligence comes from planning and the client's insights and all those kind of things. So I think that I misunderstood it when I started off, because at school, if you're talented and your ideas are good, game over.
Right.
Game done.
You're done.
And maybe 5-10% of it is like how well you can deal with stuff. But then like it completely flipped, and I'm like, I remember this is my own therapy for the listeners. Thanks for sitting in my session today. It's like I just called anyone that didn't understand it just idiots and assholes. And I'm like, that's not true. They were here last year, but when you were still a student, they know this business, and there's just truths. And the truths are that the client's going to make a decision that doesn't make sense to you, and that doesn't mean that didn't mean they were wrong. That doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong either.
Something that I'm still working on and trying to get better at is dealing with those frustrating moments and keeping a cool head. And I think I'm okay at that, but I know I could get better at it, because it's just a matter, you got to take those feelings, you got to push them down, you got to take it out in the pool or whatever your hobby is, whatever your anti-advertising is. But it's, you strike out a lot, whether it's a creative presentation, or anything, and
part of it.
Just dealing with that frustration is something you got to get good at.
Part of it. So now, as a creative director, like, do you miss anything about that's not the right way. I guess you're still doing the work, right? I mean, you're still got hands on deck.
Yeah. So
what's your job now as a creative director at Deutsch?
So we're working on some stuff where Neil and I are doing a little bit of oversight, but are also really working as a team. Mm-hmm. And it's more like, 80-20 towards making the work. So we still have our sleeves rolled up. So
I think that's an important distinction. So for people that don't understand what the title means, so creative director can mean that you're overseeing junior teams, but it can also mean that you're just got that title because you're running a piece of business and presenting the work, and you've got 10 years of experience, right? So You're still a creative team with the title creative director, but sometimes you're still the creative team on it.
Yep. And so we work for a great ECD named Guto Araki, and
say that again.
Guto Araki. He's Brazilian.
Guto Araki,
which means he's good. Mm-hmm. And so he's the tip of the spear, but we've been actually working with him for the 2 years that we've been at Deutsch, mm-hmm. and have a great working relationship where he's definitely in charge, but there's a lot of give and take that we concept together, sometimes as a super group of 3. Mm-hmm. And we're in this really small group where everyone's wearing a lot of hats, which reminds me of my goodness years. That small, scrappy group. So we're a small, scrappy group within the Deutsch confines, which is, in my opinion, great because
awesome.
You get the benefits of the big place and the benefits of that small, scrappy group.
That's really cool. So one of the things you also showed was this poster, Care the Most.
That's a Deutsch thing.
It's a Deutsch thing, right? So you always cared? You're a guy that cares.
I do care. I think, like, any success I've had in my life is because I wanted to do a good job. Mm-hmm. Like, if I gave a good talk today, it's because I've been up late the last couple of nights throwing that deck together.
It's really good. I thought it was great.
Thank you. Sorry for compliment fishing. And yeah, that was just something I was born with. I cared about being a good waiter at that mm-hmm. restaurant that I worked at while at school, and became a decent waiter.
Can you tell when people don't?
Yeah. And, those people, I would say, tend to weed themselves out of the industry. Mm-hmm. Like, the industry isn't kind to those people. It somewhat shows them the door. So, it rewards people who care and have a modicum of talent. But yeah, that's critical. And I was talking about this in forum, but I do think that as you get to a more senior role, that it's important to care the right amount, because some things you just got to get out the door, and mm-hmm. they do a good job on them, but prioritize your time correctly. Mm. But for juniors out there, I think care the most are good words to live by.
How's your work-life balance, speaking of managing sort of how much you care?
Great question. So the beginning of my career at Goodness, there was no life. It was just a work balance. I am a crazy person. I have counted every single hour I've worked in my career for the last 10 years in an Excel spreadsheet.
What?
Yeah.
What's the diagnosis on that?
I can pull it up in a second. But like, there was a point.
What's the psychological diagnosis of someone who would do that?
How much time you got? There's a lot of stuff going on. But like, there was a point.
So do you have like a bar chart to show like over the years how it's?
I don't have a chart. I should do that, but I do have a tally in this. Each tab is a different year of those mm-hmm. Of those hours, and they just plummet, which is mm-hmm. good. But they're plummeting from a super high level, so
unsustainable level.
On an unsustainable level.
But you also weren't that good then.
I was not good.
No, you were good. I'm saying you weren't as good as you are now.
No. I agree with you completely. So you need to put in that time to get those reps. But like, there was a summer where, and I can show this, and it's not like a bragging thing, but I worked for 100 days straight, and it's just like,
wouldn't brag about that either.
That was the culture of the agency,
right? And
my bosses were doing that. So the most talented ECDs in the world who had already had a huge career at Crispin were working that hard. And as a junior, you're not about to say, taking the weekend off, see you guys, while they're at the office. So
does that yield better stuff?
There are diminishing marginal returns, I'll tell you that much.
There are diminishing returns.
one thing that I like about Deutsch is that it is not the assumption that you're there till 9.
Mm-hmm.
And Neil and I do that when it's necessary. But one of the things we really like is that weekends or when you need them, late nights or when you need them, it's not the assumed course of action.
Right. So you guys work together physically, you're sitting together in the same room, same desk.
Yep.
Right. So one of the things I've found has been a challenge, and I guess I'm just saying this because I feel like saying it, has nothing to do with you.
It's your podcast.
Right. Thank you. Is that students, I hear all the time saying that, they're sharing docs or they're sending each other stuff. Like, I don't remember when you guys were here that you were doing a lot of sort of virtual concepting. It's just not good. It's because there's so many misunderstandings. There's so many things that, like, when you and I are sitting here, if we were on the phone, this would not be as interesting of a conversation to me.
Well, what percentage of a conversation is nonverbal? There's some stat where it's like 50%, just based on, you just raised your eyebrows. Listeners, you can't see that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm reacting to that. So Neil and I...
in a good way.
Neil and I, when we work together, we work in a room.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether it's a weekend thing, like, yes, you can get on a phone or a Skype or be in a doc together, but...
I feel like that's fine once you've got something pretty solid for revisions and stuff.
So get this, we're freelancing a team, and they've been working together so long that one, they're working for an LA agency, one works in a small town in Florida, and one works in Boulder.
Wow.
So, but they have 10 years of working together,
right.
So they can overcome those nonverbal cues and produce really nice work to share with their LA agency, and they get to live where they want to live, right? So that's sort of the dream. But sitting in a room together is where, in my opinion, the best ideas happen.
It's a lot funnier.
Yeah.
You're laughing a lot more.
Yeah, advertising is tough. You might as well sit in a room and make jokes together.
You might as well have fun. So you mentioned earlier, you threw this away, and I'm just going to take it at face value. I'm not going to correct you, even though I disagree. You said you're not very talented.
No, I didn't say that.
You said, I don't have talent. It's not my talent. I don't know what it was, but you're setting up some point, whatever. So let's just go with the assumption that you don't think that your talent is the thing that's gotten you where you are, which I would disagree, possibly. What do you think it is about you? What personal trait of yours do you think has been the most valuable?
I'm glad I listened to the podcast because...
You knew I was going to ask a question.
I knew you were going to ask this, and had I not listened, I would have had...
A different answer?
No idea how to answer.
Oh, wow. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry to guess that I ambushed with the questions.
Well, yeah. I think it's a good question, but it's sort of a deep one, right?
Can be.
Which is why you ask it.
Can be.
It makes for a good interview.
Mm-hmm.
And so having thought long and hard about it, I think it is my ability to delay gratification.
Oh, that's a good one.
And
that's a really good one.
And I think that is the basis for all success in anybody's life.
My daughter has that. My genius daughter is starting college in the fall. Has that? She's always had that. She's always been able to delay gratification.
So there's that famous study where they put the marshmallows in front of the kids.
Yes.
And the kids, they said, for the listeners out there, they would put a marshmallow out in front of a 3-year-old, and the videos of this are the cutest things ever.
How old? Like
3,
yeah.
something like that. And the researcher would say, if you don't eat this for 5 minutes, I'll come back and give you 5. Mm-hmm. And there are kids, 3-year-olds, who struggle with it, and then they grab it and eat it. And there are 3-year-olds who sit there and wait. And they followed those kids, and the kids who waited, predicting more than socioeconomic background, more than SAT scores, are the ones who had success in life, however they define success.
Amazing.
So whether it was swimming is delaying of gratification. You're going through 2 hours of awfulness.
Yeah.
Advertising is you're delaying gratification by canceling dinner or other late nights. One of my great passions in life is personal finance and saving money, and my friends who are listening to this will laugh because they know I'm a crazy person. But that's the same thing. I'm so much better at saving money than I'm spending it, and it drives my wife crazy. But it's all just delaying gratification.
That's awesome. It's a great answer. That's a great answer.
I had months to think about it.
Right. So how do you define success?
Oh, so you've asked this before to people.
You mentioned success there, however they define success for the toddlers that delay their marshmallow love.
I've gotten to the point where I think success is working with people you like, getting cracks at doing great work, while making money to support your family because that's what really matters.
Yeah, that's great.
Is a long answer.
That's great. That's fine.
The people, the people you work with, if you like them, that is success.
I think so. That's awesome. And you know the other question I ask everybody.
Spring it on me.
Knowing what you know now.
Oh, yeah.
What would you tell young Eric graduating from the circus 10 and a half years ago?
So this is funny because we all have a sample size of one when it comes to our career.
That's very interesting.
Right?
Mine's 2, but okay. Because I'm married to another copywriter.
There you go. I would have... So I saw that everyone, or that most people move jobs every 2 years. And what is it called when you don't like conforming?
I guess you're, I don't know.
A nonconformist.
Yeah.
So I wanted to not do that. So I stayed at Goodness for a long time.
You want to be the nonconformist by not moving.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I at some point in my Goodness time, it would have been, there were windows where I wanted to leave.
But that aligns with everything you just said about delayed gratification and finances and all those kind of things. It's sort of, it's a long view.
Yeah. Yep.
So what would you tell yourself?
So I think there were points at Goodness where I was really happy and maybe a little too comfortable because I'd been working for the same guys, let's just say, 4 or 5 years in, where there would have been a good opportunity to go try someplace else out, like a big place. But I had this misconception that every time you leave a place, you're burning the bridge behind you. And unless you go out screaming expletives,
right, that's right.
Every time you leave a place, you're actually opening a door behind you.
That's interesting.
Right? And that's what happened in my career. You leave a place, and then it's another place you can go back to work. And whether those people are still at the agency or they've moved along.
And the client relationships.
Exactly.
I've had experience with clients calling me for work after I've left the agency that I worked. So that's a very interesting point.
And it also goes to the point of you are going to run into the same freaking people your entire career. So even though it's going to feel good if you're saying goodbye to tell someone how you really feel, delay that gratification because you're going to see them across a boardroom one day and you're going to want to have a good relationship with them because suddenly they're the new CMO with your new client, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, I've started imagining what I would say and then imagine what would happen and then imagine what would happen and then say, oh my God, thank God I didn't actually say that. It's like you play it all out in your mind. You're like, why down the road would I have wished I'd said? Would I have wished I hadn't said that? Yes, I would wish that I hadn't.
All those things that would feel so good to say are generally not going to help you in the long run. It's
self-indulgent.
Yes.
It's a short-term sugar thing. It's bullshit. It's horrible. Thanks so much for talking.
It's been great to be back. It's been great to see you. You look great, by the way.
I feel pretty good today.
You got to get back into yoga.
I need to. Oh my God, I need to. I think it's affecting my vision, like my eyes. I think it's affecting my circulation, my sleep, everything. I got to get back in the studio.
Sleep is a huge part of creativity. Exercise helps sleep.
It does.
I could go on for hours.
It's very important. Listeners, if you want to get a hold of Eric, first of all, EricChristyManchester.com. That is already on the Facebook page because I really want you to look at the work. The work is really, really. We didn't talk about the work.
That's fine.
It's human. It's emotional. It's it's accessible. It's vulnerable. There's a sense of humanness to the expressions, even for like Lego. There's a humanness to it that's refreshing and accessible. Is really my best word for it. Lovely, lovely work. Incredible portfolio. Check out EricChristyManchester.com and send an email to Eric if you have any questions at emanchester@gmail.com. I'm always at danspodcast@mac.com. Thank you so much for listening, listeners. I appreciate your being on the other side of the earbuds. Eric, really great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Listeners, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, have a great one. Bye.
You're good at this.
Thanks, man.